please.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Truth and Rhythm. Brought to you by funkinstuff.net, this is the interview show that gets deep in the pocket with contemporary music's foremost masters of the groove. I am your host, Scott Dr. GX Goldfine, musicologist, creative arts journalist, and multimedia pro. Whether you're watching the video version of this show or the audio-only podcast version, I thank you so much for your continued interest and support in this show. If you enjoy this programming, there are several ways to help support Truth and Rhythm, as well as contribute to further enhancements and expansion, plus get some sweet perks and rewards in the process. First, subscribe to the Funkin' Stuff channel on YouTube, which is where Truth and Rhythm lives, and be an advocate by spreading the word among fellow funk, jazz, and R&B music lovers. Second, join Truth and Rhythm's new membership program through Patreon, which features 3 tiers for truth believers, truth seekers, and truth crusaders. You can also submit a direct donation to the cause anytime at funkinstuff.net. At that site, which is loaded with awesome content, you can also purchase the book Everything's on the One, The First Guide of Funk, shop for official Truth and Rhythm and Funkin' Stuff merchandise, and use the Amazon links for all of your online purchases, which allocates a percentage to this show. Sponsorship opportunities are available as well. Contact me directly at scottg@funkinstuff.net. For those of you who go the extra step in supporting the show, you have my heartfelt gratitude for allowing us to continue to shine the light on those special artists whose quest is to find truth in rhythm. I'm delighted to welcome to the Truth and Rhythm Mothership musician, producer, and songwriter Levi Seacer Jr., best known as a founding member of Prince's New Power Generation band, featured primarily on bass and guitar while touring and recording extensively with the MPG from 1987 to 1993. He can be heard on amazing Prince records like Sign of the Times, the Black Album, Love, Sexy Graffiti Bridge, Diamonds and Pearls, and the Love Symbol album. Having also worked with related acts like Sheila E, Madhouse, Rosie Gaines, Brownmark, The Time, Mavis Staples, and George Clinton, he presently serves as the musical director and lead guitarist for a musical collective called The Purple Ones that honors the Minneapolis Sound's legacy. Levi, how are you, man? So good to have you.
Good to be here, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so
Yes,
we can
sir.
tell that you're on the move. You're mobile today. Where are you about in the world today?
Oh, okay. So I am in Concord, California. And like I told you earlier, I was just helping a friend out. They had a doctor's appointment, and we got to help each other these days, man. A lot of people are passing out of here, man. And whatever we can do to keep them here, let's try to help.
Oh, absolutely.
So I'm doing that. Yeah.
Oh, no, go ahead.
No, that's all I'm doing that and talking to you about some fun on a beautiful day. It is a beautiful day in California.
And I want to just explain to people, so if they're listening or watching, forgive Levi a little bit with the raspy throat. You've been getting over a cold, so glad you're on the mend. But just want to let everyone know that you may be a little raspier than usual. So you'll be doing your best Barry White, like you said.
Doing Barry White thing, yeah. It's the love connection, baby. Yes, sir.
So, Levi, what drew you to, guitar in the first place? And I know you came up like in a church environment and you're playing from a young age. Can you just talk about that a little bit to give listeners and viewers a sense of that?
My grandmother, she was a pastor of a church. And in California, which was unheard of, there was very few female pastors, and she happened to be one. But she was also a musician, She played a little bit of guitar, if you can wrap your mind around that. Mama Thorpe. And so she told me when when we were really young, she said, I don't want a quiet church. I want a church to be, praise and joyous and everything. So I'm going to teach you guys what I know on the guitar and drums or whatever. And then you take it from there. Okay. And I'm like, oh, yeah. Because we love music, man. My whole family, they sing and play. And so there's a scene in the Ray Charles film, where there's this kid, he always peeking into the store, and this guy plays piano. And then he notices that the kid is kind of sneaking. So he catches him one day. He said, "Oh, you like music, huh? Come on in here." And so he sits down and he goes, there's only 3 notes you need to know. And he plays the notes and everything, So it was kind of like that for me. My grandmother, she only knew like 3 chords in music. But from that, it is true. Most very complex songs are built off of simple chord structures. And so she taught me those 3, and I was hooked, man. I was in.
Like A, D, and E?
Yeah, well, I should say a chord progression, 1, 4, 5 patterns and things, basic blues stuff. Mm-hmm. And from there, you learn your major 7ths and all that stuff, raised 9s and stuff. You learn that later on, but those basic chords will get you through most things if you know what you're doing.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And so I was hooked, man. And so from those 3 chords, you learn other chords, you talk to other musicians, and I always tell people, I said, church was the best playground for learning by ear. Because trust me, at 6 years old, I had some challenges. For example, so we start our service, and some it might be some old lady might just stand up and start singing. You don't know the song, you don't know what key it's in, you don't know where she's going with the song, you don't know her arrangement of the song, and she starts singing. You have to follow her, right? And if you didn't follow her the correct way, one of the elders in the church would tap you on the head. You're not playing it right. So after a few taps like that, you get it right, Yeah, I mean, that was literally how it was. I know it sounds funny, but that's how I was trained.
Yeah, well, funk has gone so much back to the church too. It's like
yeah, it definitely has, man. It's got that kicking, stomp the floor and clap your hand thing. I love it, man. There have been times when I wish that I hadn't learned music that way, that I would have went a different route where, you go get trained and you learn all your chords and you read, because that made it difficult. When I tried to introduce that into what I do, it was kind of difficult because I had learned how to play by ear. So once I hear something, I'm like, oh, I know where that's going, instead of reading what was there. So, so there's been moments in my career where I wish I wish I had learned the other way. But overall, I'm glad I learned the way that I did.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And I understand that Don Cornelius played a role in helping you get started. What was that about?
Oh, man, a significant role. Not to get over, ethereal, but let's say, and when you look back on your life, and I can say that now, I'm 62 years old, when you look back on your life, you think about certain events, and if this hadn't happened, that wouldn't have happened. And this hadn't happened. So there's no way I would have been ready for somebody like Prince without meeting the Don Cornelius first, because he taught me how to listen and take in information instead of, running. Like we said, we had to say, like, quit running your mouth. When you're young, you think you know everything. And Don was like, hold up, youngster. You don't know anything. And that was the first thing he said, Levi. I always remember, you don't know anything, and know who you're talking to. And so, and that's very important when you meet somebody like Prince, who's a genius and knows a lot of stuff. So you don't want to come in with your little knowledge trying to tell him something, you know. And so I'm very thankful that everything progressed like it did, because if it hadn't been, I probably wouldn't have made it through day one with Prince.
How did you get introduced to Don Cornelius?
So I was playing with Rosie Gaines. This was way back in the day, way before Prince knew her, and I actually introduced Rosie to Prince, but way before all that stuff. I was just playing in the nightclubs in the Bay Area, and you know, it was a Rosie Gaines group, you know, and she had it was a guy named Curtis Olson on bass, incredible player. But anyway, so I was just jamming with Rosie, man, one night, and I noticed while we were playing, there was this guy in the back of the club. And I said, man, that guy looks like Don Cornelius. But I'm like, why would he be here in this little club, you know? So I'm playing, evening goes on, you know, everybody's starting to go home. The guy's still sitting there. All right. Now the whole, you know, the club is over, everybody's going home. He's still sitting there. And so I'm like, that's Don Cornelius. I know it is. So I walk back and I say, you Don Cornelius, right? He's like, yeah. And I said, man, what in the hell are you doing here? He said, I came to see you. I said, me? He said, yeah. He said, I heard about you in LA and I'm putting a band together. And he said, I had some business meetings up this way. But he said, I thought I'd come through and see if you could play it. I didn't want to tell you I was coming. I just wanted to see. And he said, yeah, you can play. That's how I met him.
Wow. What city was that in?
That was in, I want to get it right. I believe it's Albany. It's near El Cerrito. The club was called Earl Solano's Club. It's not open anymore, but that was the spot back in the day where it's kind of like the Baked Potato in LA,
mm-hmm.
but not as famous. But, Pete Escovedo, Sheila come through there. Let's see, Ray Oviedo, all those type of cats.
Yeah, Northern California.
Yeah. But he came in there, and I'm like, wow. I'm like, well, man, I don't know what to say. I'm honored, man. And you come out here, you know. And I said, well, I hope you're satisfied. He said, yeah. So let's sit down, let's talk. And we talked, and then that's how our business relationship started off. Yes, sir.
And Levi, what was your first professional, either show or recording session?
Was with Don Cornelius, yeah. Because he had this Soul Train TV show, but what people don't know about Don Cornelius is he's a producer and songwriter. And so I'm taking you back to the days of when Solar Records first started. Him and Dick Griffey were friends back then. And, Dick Griffey's like, hey, man, you got that TV thing. I'm doing the record thing. We need to kind of combine forces and we'll kind of work together. And so Don was, he said, I do a little writing and I have a passion for bands and artists and stuff. So I was, I don't want to say one of the first bands he worked with. I think I was maybe like band number 3 or 4. But he knew what he knew what he was doing, man. He could write and produce and all of that. And so I would say that was my first, what I would say, professional job.
And did you have your own band? Were you in a certain band, or were you doing sessions?
Both. He had some artists that he wanted us to, do some recording for, but he wanted to do a project around us. The band at the time was called Turbo. I mean, I didn't like the name. I never did like the name. We're like Turbocharged. Is that what you saying? Like the Power Rangers or something? I mean, back then they had names like that. He's like, Turbo Funk. I'm like, okay, whatever. But excellent musicians in there. There's a guy on the bass named Melvin Davis. He's on a lot of the smooth jazz funk records. He plays with Lee right now and stuff. Incredible guy. But at the time, we were put together to back an artist by the name of O'Brien. Yeah, he had a song called Love Light and Gigolo. And he, he had some
I'm
fame.
Freaky, and he also did the Soul Train theme too.
Yeah, so we were on Soul Train a lot, playing behind him and Phil John's other groups. Yeah, so it was an interesting time. So to me, it was my first job, but I got kind of the whole 360 of what was going on because we had television and radio all in one whop. On the first time around, I'm like, wow, man, I was trying to soak it up, man.
Yeah, and so you're playing guitar or bass mostly?
Guitar back then, yeah. I mean, the whole bass thing, that only happened because when I got my first recording in the studio, Tascam 4-track, I was having a hard time getting bass players to come over and lay down some tracks. So I said, you know what? I'm going to buy me a bass, because let me learn this, and because I can't be waiting. I want to learn this craft. But I can't be waiting on musicians, So that's how that started. And, guitar and bass is related.
Oh, yeah. There's so many more bass players that came from guitar. I don't know too many bass players that ended up on guitar, but, like Rusty started on guitar, Bootsy started on guitar.
Stanley Clark.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. That's how I even got into it, because people say, well, what's your main instrument? I'm like, it's guitar. But the bass was kind of a side thing, but it was a natural side thing to pick up very easy. Yeah.
Who were some of your, before Prince, who were some of your, musical heroes? Who'd you really look up to or want to play like or do music like?
I think my first guitar hero was Jimi Hendrix, and not because I'm not a rock guitar player. I'm not really a rock guitar. I can do some of that, but that's not my main thing. But Jimmy was the first one that I said, wow, what is he doing? Because it was a lot different than what I was playing in church. I mean, it was kind of almost a heaven and hell thing, Mm-hmm. Like I'm here playing for the Lord, and then I'm going to hell with Jimmy. So, and I had to sneak those records, man, because, I was church boy. It's like, oh no, Jimmy's the devil. And I'm like, boy, that devil can play though. Man, he can play. And so my cousin had a pretty large Jimi Hendrix collection. So my mom was said, why you want to go over your cousin's house so much? I said, oh, we're just hanging out talking about music. But he was exposing me to other guitars because he felt like if I was exposed to that would, broaden my vision on what a guitar player could do or be. And then Eddie Hazel, he exposed me to Parliament Records, and then I like Ernie Isley. I was like really like that because, when I think about it now, they were doing R&B and kind of this little rock thing together. It's kind of a different sound. Yeah. And then, but my real roots, I would say, it's kind of like more in the jazz funk. And so on the jazz side, George Benson was then my hero and still now to this day. Like when he plays, I don't know, I just go, man, that it just touches me, Mm-hmm. And they got a lot of new cats coming up, but George is he's the guy for me. And then, of course, on the funk side, it don't get no funkier than James. Holla cats, you can't get funkier than that. It's impossible.
That's the essence.
Yeah.
That's the essence.
Yeah. That's the root.
Yeah. And of course, Hazel and Ernie, so influenced by Hendrix too. So.
Oh, exactly. It's all a circle.
Yeah.
But yeah, those were the ones I was kind of listening to back then in the day. Yeah.
Yeah, all guys I love. So I saw that did you record with Bill Summers? I was looking at some of your credits before Prince, and I saw that was listed. And
yeah, I didn't know Bill Summers, But what happened was Sheila's brother, Peter Michael. You know Peter Michael?
I don't know him personally, but
well, they call him Pito.
Yeah.
Pito. He was dabbling with some producing back in the day, and you know the Escobedos, they knew every musician on earth. And Peter Michael is the greatest salesman in the world. And he said, "Hey, Bill, you know I got some songs you ought to check out." And he said, "Okay, well, you know." So Peter Michael would come up with some songs, and then he'd have us come in the studio and lay our parts down, and it was interesting experience. And then after Bill Summers had heard this, he said, "Oh, let's do some more stuff." And then I came in, and then I got a chance to meet him. But a lot of the side stuff back then was actually with Peter Michael, because he kind of got me into the recording world. He introduced me to several people. And then to bring everything full circle, I was joking about Barry White in the beginning. That was one of my first professional sessions is for Barry White.
Oh.
Don Cornelius, him and Barry were really good friends. And he says, "Levi, come take a ride with me. I got a surprise." I said, "Okay, where we going?" He said, "Don't worry about it." You know. So we went over, beautiful house in LA. You know, a door opens, it's all this red plush velvet, and it's like a love lounge, you know. And I'm like, "Man, where are we at?" You know. And all of a sudden you hear that voice. "Hey Don, how you doing? This is, you know, who you got with you?" He said, "This is a guitar player I was telling you about, Levi. We're gonna put some guitar on a couple of your songs, you know." Barry had a little project studio, and took me downstairs and said, "Turn on the track and show me what you got."
Wow.
Yeah.
I can just imagine hearing Don has quite a voice too. To hear Don and Barry White talking must be.
Oh man, it was like I'm like this little weasel commoner, and you got the two titans just talking. That's how I felt, but it was great, man. I wouldn't trade it for anything.
What an amazing experience.
Yeah, I'm blessed, man. Yes.
So how did you end up, did you first got with Sheila, right? So is that right? You got with Sheila first, then the Prince?
No, that's complicated. Okay, so before Sheila, actually, let me get it straight, man. Okay, so what happened is when Sheila, you know, when I used to play with Sheila in the club scene, you know, when she just had it was like a jazz fusion band. We were just gigging around, and we played at our Solano club. I was playing with her, and then Sheila got a call to go on tour with Marvin Gaye. So she left the Bay Area for a while. While she was gone, her and Prince connected, and they did The Glamorous Life. And so now I'm like, wow, Sheila's gone, but wow, a lot has happened since you've been gone, you know? Like, you're an artist now. Now you're Sheila E and the whole thing. And so it had been almost a year since I saw her. And then I heard she was in town, and she was over at SIR where we used to rehearse. So I missed her, man, you know, and I'm like, you know, I'm just going to pop in just to check on her and see how she's doing. So I drive over there, and I'm like, man, what's going on at SIR today? It's a lot of people here. And little did I know, she was having auditions because she was putting a new band together for her Sheila E tour. Now she had a band, but she was revamping the band. And so I just happened to pop over, and so I walk in the big room, the rehearsal room, and she's sitting on the couch, and I, you know, went and hugged her and sat down. I'm like, hey, what's going on? A lot of people here. I mean, the line was all around the block, you know. And she's like, I'm having auditions today for, she says, I'm revamping a band, but I don't know exactly what I want. It's kind of like I'll know it when I hear it, you know. I'm like, cool. You mind if I hang out? No. So I sat with her, and we listened to maybe, I don't know, 30 or 40 musicians that came up. And what she did for the audition, she had him play a song called Love Bazaar by Prince. And she wanted to see if they could cop that Minneapolis feel. And, Prince, I tell musicians, I say, Prince really does have his, like, he's a funkster, but he does have, the Minneapolis sound is real. There's a certain way you play it, there's certain techniques you have to do to get that sound. And there's a feel, you have to have that feel. And it's hard to explain. It's like either you hear it or you don't. And the people that know the sound, when they go ahead, that's it, So we're sitting down, and I've been familiar with, Sheila's records. And so I'm sitting there and we listening. She's like, man, I'm just not getting what I want. She said, she knew Sheila knows me as a guitar player, but she had heard that I played bass as well. She said, just for fun, would you audition on bass for me? And I'm like, what? She's like, yeah, I want you to audition on bass because I'm not getting what I want to anyway. So, it couldn't be worse than that. So I said, okay. So I knew that feel she was looking for, even though she didn't know anything about me listening to Prince. So I went up there and she's like, that's it. So she says, look, I know you guitars, but I really need bass right now. So would you do that? Would you do me a favor? Just play bass for me for a little bit. And as soon as we can, I'll switch you back to guitar. And I'm like, well, yeah, Sheila, I'm a musician. Whatever I got to do. So that's how I got in Sheila's band. Now I'm in Sheila's band. And then Prince would come to a lot of our rehearsals. If I didn't know better, I swear he had an apartment in San Francisco because it seemed like he was there all the time. At least once a week he was there. And he just come in and, he have his shades on. He just start jamming with us, and Prince knew about some groove, man. So whatever instruments, the piano, he knew just the right piano part to play. If it was bass, he knew just, he's the ultimate jammer. So we hanging out and I'm getting to know him a little bit. And then sometimes we would go to LA and hang out in the LA area at Sunset Sound. So during that time, Prince, well, he knows of me now. So he told Sheila to bring me along. He said, bring Levi with you. And I'm like, wow, he invited me to the session. What's going on? And so that was the beginning of the Flesh sessions, if you know anything about those. Yeah, and we just, man, it was like Disneyland, man. Prince had all these empty Ampeg tapes in the hallway. And he was like, bring in a tape. And he was like, okay. And we just jammed for 15 minutes until the tape run out. He bring in another one.
That's like right in between like Parade and Sign of the Times.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So
we
know where we're talking.
Yeah, we had some stuff called junk music and all kinds of things, man. And then we bring in a tape, and man, we must have did maybe 28 songs, 30 songs during that time. So I'm starting to develop a rapport with Prince, and then we went on the road. And then there was one tour we opened up for Prince, and that's when the Tony was in our band, in Sheila's band. 3 members from the Tonys were in that band. And so, it was competition now. We couldn't go out that week. Oakland had to represent. So we gave it to Prince a couple of nights. Let's put that on the record. Yeah. So anyway, he was checking out the sound, and I'll never forget, man. Then we went on to open up for Lionel Richie. I think it was the Outrageous tour. So we're on the road, and Prince pops up at the show, and when he got there, he was looking for me, and I'm like, what is he looking for me for? So he says, Levi, I need to talk to you. I'm like, okay. He says, well, He says, I'm putting a new band together. And now I'm not in his band at this time. He says, Sheila's going to disband her band, and then Sheila and Bonnie is going to be part of this new band. I just finished the album, Sign of the Times. I'm still tweaking on it, but I'm almost done. And he says, man, I love what you do, man, and you're gonna be in the Prince camp. I'm doing projects all the time, so don't worry about it. But what you guys are doing now is about to end, and then I'm gonna do that thing. And I'm like, oh boy, I'm like, does Sheila know this? He says, no, I haven't told her yet, but we're gonna talk about it after the concert. And so I'm like, man, this is really big changes, man, because we were like a 3-month tour with Lionel, you know what I mean? It's like, we're not thinking about disbanding, So anyway, make a long story short. So all of that happened, just like he said. And about a week later, I get a call. Levi, hold on. Right? And I'm like, who is this? It was Prince's secretary. And next voice I hear is Prince. Levi, you want to join my band? And I'm like, Prince? I'm like, man, I thought you just no. Well, I want you. He said, the only thing is, I know you're a guitarist, but I need you on bass because I need that. I need that kind of sound right now. And then when we can, just like Sheila told me, we'll switch you back to guitar. I'm like, hey man, I'll play a cowbell if you want me to be in your band. I'm in, dog. So he says, okay, well, Teresa will give you, all the information. And rehearsal's Monday. It was a Friday. I'm like, oh my God. He said, you're going to be here for a while. So, pack a lunch and a bag. And so that's how I got into Prince's band.
Wow. Yeah. Thanks for sharing all that. That was amazing. Mine's reeling a little bit, but as I'm sure yours was at that time.
Oh my God, man. There was a time I was almost in the family for a quick second. For a really quick second. We'll share that one later.
So he flew out to Minneapolis, or? Yeah,
they flew me to Minneapolis. Back then, the go-to was we all stayed at the Residence Inn, and what I was really impressed with and really shocked. Prince was very organized, man. For a musician, because musicians, they leave a great gift on the earth with music and song melodies and things, but we're not always the most organized, And Prince had like Berry Gordy structure. Everything was like rehearsals at this time, lunches at this time. We practice, get some rest because we're doing a show. It was very regimented. And he always had a notebook with him. He was always making notes, making changes, edits. So I was really impressed with that because, his talent was through the roof. But to see that side too, I'm like, wow, there's a method to his madness, This is the real deal, So and I'm just like, and Don Cornelius always told me, man, when you're around a genius, just shut up and soak it up. Soak it up. Yeah. Don't be, you got some little ideas, but if you're around a genius, why bring your little idea? Why not try to trade those for some bigger ideas?
So the first tour that you went out on, was it Sign of the Times or Love Sexy?
Sign of the Times. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So that was mostly overseas, right?
Yeah. We hardly did anything in the States back there. And, I actually forgot that we never toured the States with Sign of the Times. We never did. And I'm like, how did that happen?
Yeah. Well, from like after Purple Rain, he didn't tour the U.S. much because Parade, he hardly did any shows in the U.S. And then Sign of the Times, he didn't do any. And he really came back with Love Sexy.
Yeah. In America, I love our country despite all the nonsense we're going through now. But musically, America seems to we give up on our classics too early. Everything is what's next, what's next, what's next, instead of celebrating what's already here and realizing how great that is. And and that was very, very much so in the music world. And I think Prince, he didn't discuss that a lot, but we did have a lot of private talks about that. He's like, man, I just love Europe because they appreciate, the time that they can hear what I'm trying to say. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm trying to put my heart into it. I'm trying to take them someplace. Yeah, for example, now I love hip hop. I love all of that stuff. But I'll say I won't say all music. I'll just say in the R&B music, I feel like we've kind of abandoned that sound. They got that saying, man, what would Marvin Gaye say right now? I mean, I'd be scared. They'd be shocked at where music is now. It's not the music that's dominating everything. Is not really. I hate to say it. It's almost not music. I don't know what it is. Yeah. It's kind of jigsaw puzzle. Like, take this, put this with that, and then okay, that's a song, and then tune this up, and then it's not from practicing your instrument for years and years, or practicing your vocals, or practicing songwriting. It's coming from a different place. It's like AI music.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
That's why, a big part of this show, Truth and Rhythm, is to open ears and eyes and hearts and make sure that this legacy continues for all the great artists like yourself and so many others that have done funk, R&B.
And I think I like to take it a step further. I think music, man, when you don't have good music, you almost don't have a good life. Like Jimmy Terry used to always say, man, music really is the soundtrack to your life. There's memories. If you're feeling down, you got a favorite record, you can put it on, makes you feel better. But man, you kind of take that away. It's like, man, what you got? You just got problems.
Mm.
Yeah. Anyway, that's how I think about it. Okay. All right.
So what was it like for you being on that Love Sexy tour? I mean, did it blow your mind?
Yeah, it blew my mind on a lot of levels. Because, Prince is very competitive, man, So, Michael Jackson was doing his thing that year. And Prince was like, you know me, Levi, I got to be sexy. And so he's like, if you're going to be the best, you got to have one of the best stages. And so when he told us about that design, I'm like, oh my God. Still to this day, when I see some of the clips that they have out, I'm like, man, that was a hell of a stage, man. And he knew how to work that stage. So, but like I said, with Prince, he would always have this phrase, like, he'll say, now wrap that around your mind. He said, play that video in your mind. He would say something like that. And what he meant was, and which he practiced, anytime Prince would have a vision or a thought, he would literally do that. He could see the concert playing in his mind in real time. And then after seeing that vision in his head, then he would go back and then make that, what he saw, happen. And so when he told us all the stuff he was going to do, I'm like, man, we got a lot of work to do. And he's like, yep. And, we rehearsed, I think, 5 months for a 6-month tour. And we changed the show every night on the tour with after shows, okay? So it was quite a challenge. But if you organize and you structure it and He's a great general. Like he knew how to run the army. Like, you do this, you do that, and if that doesn't work, you back up that. And man, it was just amazing how he coordinated everything and had everything just in the right spot. hmm So it was, it's still mind blowing. Like, people say, well, what are the things you think about now? I said, man, I'm still decompressing from all of the stuff that we did. Because for some people, it's interesting how we experience time. For me, I'm thinking about, okay, did I play this right? Did I play that part right? Do the dance step? And for them, it just all played out. But I remember that same time period totally different. Even though it happened, you get what I'm saying without being too matrix like.
Yeah.
It's so I'm really like so I'm getting to enjoy the music like a fan would. I can sit back because I'm not working. I put it on, play it, and I said, and I'm like, that was pretty good. I'm glad to be a part of that, But it was a lot of work.
That Love Sexy tour. I saw this show at the LA Sports Arena. I don't know if you remember that one specifically, but because I'm from Los Angeles, and it just blew my mind. I mean, I've seen Prince 50, 60 times over the years from the Roxy in 1978 all the way up until, not too long before he left us.
Wow.
And definitely Love Sexy was one of the top, just because the stage, like you said, was just mind-blowing. And also the performance was so great. That band was so phenomenal. I love the costumes, the song choice, the piano rising, the basketball hoop, the Thunderbird. Just incredible.
Yeah. He, another thing about Prince, he can, whatever he's feeling, he's the best at making you feel what he's feeling. That's a hard thing to do. You could be really happy, but someone says, well, how happy are you today? Well, I don't know how to tell you, but Prince can make you feel that. And I'm like, that's a gift, man. I mean, when he's screaming, you feel it. The lyrics, you're like, wow, you can put yourself in that place and feel it. When he's taking a solo, like it feels like you're on stage with him,
Oh yeah,
he's very spiritual dude, man.
Yeah, well, and I think it's no accident that a lot of the band members like yourself and Kip Blackshire and Morris Hayes and so many came from sort of a church background and have that spiritual sense within them,
Right. Yeah, there's man, I know I'm being deep today, but there's kind of two kind of spirituals, Most people, when they hear the word spiritual, it goes to like a church thing. But I think if you're a spiritual person, you're kind of open to all kind of spirits, even bad ones. You ever met somebody and you're like, something about that dude is like, I don't know. You don't know what it is, but something's saying, I'm going to go this way. I'm going to let him walk that way. I'm going to go this way because I don't know what that is. I think we all naturally feel that. I mean, some people feel it more. Some people feel it less. But I think of Prince. Prince is like, he's tapped into it where he can feel all aspects of it, whether it's just a church thing or whether it's this or that. He can feel all of those
like
things.
an aura.
Yeah, man. And then, if Prince writes a song and it's got a lot of pain in it, he knows how to write it in a way where you feel it. Or you feel it the way you feel it, but you feel it. Yeah.
I think that also you're one of the names that he called out the most at shows, Levi, I mean, you must have gotten a kick out of that, or was it pressure when he would call your name?
No, you know what it was, man, people don't know this, but I spent an awful lot of downtime with Prince. I mean, they saw us on stage together where we had a lot of conversations. I mean, I would say daily, really. And so when me and him were on stage, it was like, all right, let's relax and do what we do. And let's let our spirits kind of play, you know. And so I just think that was just literally it was a spiritual conversation on stage, but through music. Yeah, yeah.
What do you think was Prince's greatest among all his amazing musical gifts? Is there one that you think stands above the rest?
So to me, it's kind of what Don Cornelius told me. Prince was the greatest sponge in the world. Like, if he was around anybody for any period of time, and there was something that he wanted, like he liked out of an artist, he could absorb that and then transform it into what he wanted it to be. You know, and I think that to me is the greatest gift, because if you can't absorb things, how do you go to the next level? I mean, if you're not in tune with what's going on, how do you become greater? So I think to me, I don't want to say a secret of his greatness, but I think he had to have the gift of absorbing and listening, you know. And then I'll say a second gift was knowing that if you want to get from A to B, you got to do the work. And, you know, he wrote a few songs about that, willing to do the work. You can't get from here to there just thinking about it. So when he had a line like, nothing comes to dreamers but dreams, nothing comes to talkers but sound, you got to do the work to get to that next point. And that's where most people fall off. Yeah, I want to do that, but I'm not willing to put all that time in to find that thing that's inside of me. You know, they kind of want it to just happen quick, but it doesn't work that way. So anyway, I would say though, yeah.
Well, I was going to say, that sounds like the kind of thing that might have been one of the best lessons you also picked up from him.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and it was the same lesson Don was trying to tell me, like, man, do less talking and open your ears and just be quiet and learn. It seems like an easy thing to do, but everybody on the planet, that's the hardest thing to do, is just listen. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And he made you the musical director at some point, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah, he did.
Was that for like the Diamonds and Pearls era, or was it before then?
Love Sexy, actually. I remember we were doing those sessions. I'll say earlier than that, I was signing the Times, because we were about maybe 4 or 5 weeks in, and then he had a meeting with me. He said, come in my office and talk. He says, now, you know, this is my band. You know, I'm the leader, but I want, you know, he said, I trust you to run a band, because you know, I was Sheila's music director as well. So he says, you know, I got a lot of things that I got to do. So I want to put you in charge of these things under my direction. And then, like, so for example, he had to go to LA a lot. And so when he was gone, I was in charge of things. So he gave me some instructions, and then he gave me a little leeway. He said, look, you can try your arrangements, but if I don't like it, I got to take it out. So don't get attached to anything. But he said, go ahead, do your thing. So I was like, oh man, I'm so honored that he told me that, you know. So, you know, so in some of the shows, you know, some of those things were my things, you know, or some things we collabed on, and I was like, man, I couldn't believe it, man. So, but like I said, it was his way of being efficient. He was like, well, man, if you could do that and I can do this, now we can do all of this together. So, yeah.
How much of a fan were you of his music before you got connected with him?
I was a big fan, but I was never fanatical. You know, like I was never like, oh, that's it. You know, it was never like that. But because when his first record came out, I was like, how does one person play all the instruments? I didn't even know how that was possible technically. And then I heard about Stevie Wonder doing it. And then I'm like, well, you know, I did my research and that's how I learned about multi-tracking and things like that. So I was really impressed with the fact that he could take his song from idea to finished product by himself. That was amazing. And so I was a fan of that, really. Like, how do you do that? And then how do you know how to be different characters on instruments to make it all feel like a band? You know, I mean, it's one thing to know how to play, you know, a bass or a piano, but can you play the piano like another person or not, so it doesn't all sound like you? You know, and he had the ability to do that. So I was a big fan of that, man.
I remember playing some of his early records for musicians, and they would be in disbelief when I tell them he's playing all that. And they're like, no way, that's got to be different people.
Right. Yeah.
There's much more to this great Truth and Rhythm interview. Just continue on to the next part of the episode. Also, be sure to subscribe to this channel. If you've already done so, please share it with friends. And become a member by joining Truth and Rhythm on Patreon, or consider donating at funkinstuff.net. Thank you very much.